65% of the content you consume is negative. Your brain is wired to see the negative, but it's as a protection. For one negative thought, you need 3 for it to become neutral, and for one negative thought, you need 6 to make it a positive. So this is why sometimes the world feels so bad, and every day we reaffirming this, because we're not aware how the brain works. We're not aware that, that we are being sort of like passengers, asked that question to ChatGPT once, because I said, based on neuroscience, all the research we know about, how the brain works and people, how long would it take if we all decided to think positive tomorrow? How long would it take to change the world? And it said a few years. And I thought, I'm going to do that. And I really believe in it 100%.
So first of all, thank you so much for your introduction and for including Noah in your book. And I'm also very honored to be here today because, yes, you are my very good friend and I've seen you since the pandemic, basically. 2020, we met online.
On Facebook.
And I've seen your journey. And I think it's important for all of us to remember that each journey is different. We tend to always look online and compare ourselves with other people, and we're kind of trying to mimic what other people are doing because we think that's what we need to do. And Cecile has just gone, let me do my own thing, which is, I think, is amazing and wonderful. And maybe not everybody has understood you in the beginning, but they will.
Yes. Yeah, they're starting to.
And so I'm, so amazed and happy to be here today. And thank you for trusting me with this interview job. And let's just jump into it. And so for anyone who's just discovering you now, who is Anne-Cécile?
So my name is Anne-Cécile. I'm a French screenwriter and the founder of BF Media Lounge, which is a film and TV company on a mission to turn up the positivity, and we do it through films because films show us the perspective, the way things should be, and books because books it starts with us, help us, it starts from with us, and community because the more we are doing positivity, this is how we can change the world. So that's the three principles of the company.
And how did you go? Because you were originally, or you defined yourself as a screenwriter. So how did you go from screenwriter to founder of your company?
With great difficulty, because I was a screenwriter with the poverty mindset and no business acumen. And obviously, and what you may know is also after that, I was already trying to find my path. While I was trying to find my path, things went dark. I became overwhelmed with anxiety, and which I didn't know at the time was because of perimenopause. And I only found out a year later. And my life was put on hold. I didn't know who I was. I felt like I was a bit outside of my body. There were times I couldn't even walk properly. I was shaking often. It was just like everything was changing and no one knew why. I was told to give, little tablets, but no one, told me what it was, because unfortunately it's one of the things in chapter 8 of the book where I talk about health and beauty. As in women, we need to advocate for our health because unfortunately the healthcare system is not actually made for us. So after a year, it wasn't a doctor who told me what could be wrong with me, but it was a woman who said, this what could happen with perimenopause? And through my research, I found out also this is, if you experience trauma when you're younger or later, you could experience, it's more likely to happen to you, which was my case. So that also made sense. So that became the thing, but actually that struggle of coming out of that was also what led me to Reboot Your Story and BF Media Lounge, because it's how I found out there's 6 elements, but also the positivity that's giving me the fuel today and made me want to change the way we view the world.
So this was like a survival mode for you. And how long did it last?
It lasted about 3 years. I mean, what happened is that it was darkness for a year, darkness for a second year. And then in 2023, I was, working on the book, working on trials and errors. And I'm really very honest about it in the book. I talk about those moments as well. And then one day I had ice cream. And then I was like, that ice cream tastes amazing. And then I realized that was the only thing I'd enjoyed in 3 years, as silly as that. And that lasted 10 minutes of enjoying the ice cream. But, and then the light went, but there was light. So that was the speck of light that made me think, right, you're doing something right, keep going. If there's one bit of light, there could be more light. And this was what was happening. And then that's how I went through all the elements of the books. I went, first of all, with a rewrite, which was because I started with storytelling. I say, how can I change my own storytelling? And then, so I observed a bit about that. And then I thought, how can I change my brain? Because we're taught, all of us, we're taught to brush our teeth every day. We're taught how to eat well, with all of that. But no one tells us how to think properly, how to do these things. So that was the second thing based on neuroscience. How can I change that bit? And then the third one was about emotions, because screenwriters and writers and filmmakers, we know about the personal wound. We use that for our characters, but it's also the personal wound is something that's affected you. And then so that's also how to deal with those emotions, which was chapter 3. And then after that, positivity, which I found out through science that positivity really is the fuel for everything and can really transform our lives and speed our healing and everything. And then connection was also important. And then eventually finding my purpose, which was the last one. And this is, I went on that journey.
And you spoke earlier about the fact that you had a poverty mindset. What does that mean to you, and how did you change that?
Okay, the poverty mindset, I think actually it's not unusual for a creative person to have this poverty mindset. I think it's actually quite common. And this is
and for women?
For women, yeah, I mean, but I think in general for artists, because for centuries, like we're talking about the struggling artists, we have all these painters, they paint and then they're really poor. And then when they die, this is when they make the money on the painting. And it's considered normal. You're not supposed to do it for the money. True artists don't do it for the money. So all these narratives that we have as creative help us keep us down. And that's why we're being exploited in the industry, because also entertainment is not viewed as important. But there are people making billions of money with our creativity. So I think it's coming out of that. And I think in the film industry in particular at the moment, I think now, because corporations are really taking more and more advantage of creators, and it feels like now we all trying to go a different way, which actually is, I'm glad, because it looks like this societal narrative maybe is changing. And you're absolutely right. Also women, we have more trouble with money, which is actually chapter 7 in the book, where I had to address my own issues with my perception of money. It comes from childhood, but also, you're not supposed to ask for more, so all of that is something that I look at. And then I went through the elements to get to do that poverty mindset. So the mindset, how to think differently, and then connect also, with the women here at Juno House, which was a big thing.
Yeah, talk about that, because I know, it's also something that has been extremely important in my life, and I know that you've gone through the same. You really found a community here in Juno House. It's been very important and an important part of your success to surround yourself with these women. So can you explain more about that? In what way that has been significant?
I think throughout my whole life, I was a bit worried about women. I mean, again, something coming back from childhood. And I think often also we hear those narratives. It's something I talk about a lot in the book, the societal narratives that affect us. That women, you can't trust women. Women are in competition for everything. And I kind of bought into that. I was a bit scared of women, so I never really engaged too much. But as part of this healing, I wanted to. And I know a friend of mine who'd been member of Juno for a year, and it really helped her business. So I thought maybe I should try and do that. And that became the thing where I talked about connections and healing misogyny, which is chapter 5. When I came to Juno, everything you do gets amplified when you're in a group. So in a positive group like Juno, women could help me, sort of amplify in a good way. But what I mean by that also, they were supportive. They were telling me, do you know what? I was going through the same thing, and you don't have a tangible idea yet? That's okay. So was I, No one judged me. I never felt like I had to explain, which sometimes I feel with men I had to say, are you sure you want to do that? Here I didn't feel that. And more than anything, I saw women who were succeeding And it became attainable for me. And they became my compass. I could really see it. Okay, if they can do it, I can do it. What can I do? What can I be more like them?
You had role models.
I had role models, exactly. And I think this is also the issue that, and then as a creative person to be sort of like welcome in that world as well was really incredible. And I would love to have more creative women in particular really more involved with the sort of mindset and helping themselves. So that's true. Huge thing.
And I guess, I mean, Juno House has also been a big positive influence. What you're talking about with motivation, support, all of that really feeds into the positivity, right? So I'm interested to hear how you got into all of it. Well, how did you get interested in positivity so much as to write a book and also to begin investigating into?
Yeah, and creating a company based on that.
Exactly.
Part of the research, like when I learned about positivity, I found out, which it's not going to surprise anyone, that 65% of the content we consume is negative. And when I talk to people about that, people say it feels like more. It feels like more. And this is the thing, because when you're about neuroscience, it's like your brain is wired to see the negative, but it's as a protection, what's the danger out there? So basically, because of that, we tend to trust negative stuff more. So for one negative thought, you need 3 for it to become neutral. And for one negative thought, you need 6 to make it a positive. Wow. So if you're 65%, it should be the other way around. So this is why sometimes the world feels so bad. And every day we reaffirm in this. So for me, it was like, yes, we can change that. It's just because we're not aware how the brain works. We're not aware that, that we are being sort of like passengers, because we tend to trust the negative. And also the negative is being used by people in corporations, but also by politicians and algorithms. So yes, that's why I thought, let's do this. Yeah. Because also it helped me so much in my life. Every day is the fuel that keeps me going.
So do you really believe that positivity can change the world, or is it just wishful thinking for you?
Yes, well, I 100% believe in it, because I asked that question to ChatGPT once, because I said, based on neuroscience, all the research we know about, how the brain works and people, how long would it take if we all decided to think positive tomorrow, and as a group decide to do that, how long would it take to change the world? And it said a few years. Wow. And I thought, I'm going to do that. And I really believe in it 100%.
Okay, so I'm going to just jump quickly in and give like a little personal thought here. So I'm an activist, and I spend a lot of time looking at really negative things. So I'm very much into, sexual violence, domestic violence, and all of these things that I do a lot of research about. I read a lot of books, I listen to podcasts, documentaries, and I'm just feeding my brain constantly with all of this negativity. And I think somehow there must be a balance as well, right? Because you need that as well as an activist, especially I think for us women, feminists, people sometimes call us angry, but fuck, we have to be angry, to change things. But when you started talking about all this positivity, and I read your book, and I was like, the girl is onto something. I think I need to balance it out.
So are you, actually, because the positivity movement that I don't like and I find toxic is the belief that if you think positively, if you believe everything is lovely, then the world is going to change. Mm-hmm. But, how about the times where your mother died or something really bad happened? You need to talk about that. And this is why I had the thing about the emotions, because it's like we need to also be looking at that. So you're right. If you're making a film about saying, oh, this is what's happening to me, but it's a fine line, because we need to talk about it, but also with solutions. Because, if you watch a film that's about just sexual violence, for example, women get raped, women get assaulted, and it's really bad. And you come home and you're like, oh my God, the world is a horrible place, and what can I do? You're drained. So that's the danger. I think a lot of it we do in society is like we observe what's going on. But I think unless we can show, this is why I believe the films I want to make, is only we can show what can be as a solution. People are like, oh yeah, I want that. That's possible. Like the same thing with Juno House, where, when they were saying like, I could see women doing that, then I could see it. Because the brain doesn't discern between what's real and what isn't. So, if you don't see it, or if you don't put that thought in your head, then it doesn't work. It doesn't exist.
It's a bit like when you watch posters for domestic violence, for example, that are directed towards women, call this number, and you always see a battered woman with a blue eye and really, I don't think any woman identifies with that. No. I'm not going to call a number where a woman looks like that. Why don't we make posters that are really empowered, where she has a role model and she's like, you can be that woman, call this number. And I think that's what you're leaning into, which I like.
It's a solution for you, as opposed to, okay, you're desperate and then this is your last thing, we can sort of pick you up and sort of like...
So actually one of the favorite things of the book that I enjoyed probably the most was all your own, like, references to your own experiences. I thought it was really, really powerful, and you didn't hold back, and you really express yourself and your feelings. I thought that was very powerful. Talking about death, talking about the death of your father, and things that sometimes maybe can be taboo, that we don't tend to talk about. So that's
the whole thing about me going through that was taboo. To have, even I wasn't talking to people about it. If you saw me then, you didn't think, well, this was going on with me. I wasn't even sharing it, because it's complicated, because you tell people, I'm feeling bad. People are like, oh my God, I don't want to be around her anymore. And people don't want that as well, because that's scary, right? So yes, for me, it was really important that, first of all, I'm really honest about all the steps I went into. I went deep. Even went to a cemetery, and I sort of like wrote down a sort of eulogy for myself, my old self. I did so many things, and the death of my dad was another one. But I thought, not because I thought people would think, oh, I'm having the same experience as her, just because I think we all have those experiences, and no one really goes deep, no one really talks about it. And I wanted to say, okay, when that happens to you, because one day, if you live long enough, those things will happen to you. Hopefully it will help you. And also it's introduced each of the elements which people could relate to. Because I think on social media, you in particular, because we often relate to social media, everything is either perfect, or people say, you know what, I was bad, but now I'm wonderful. But then, I can tell you right now that for me, I can't say I have the answers, because I won't find the answers. But every day I look at the elements, I use them myself, because I know there will be time where I will fall, be time I will wake up. I'm not sure exactly why, something is happening to me, and then I have to observe that. One day I'll spend a whole day not feeling well, and it's okay. Because the other thing, and I wanted to put in the book, is that all of this is universal. There will be days when you feel lows. There will be days when you feel, what the hell am I doing in this world? Happens to everyone, and it's normal. And I think there's ways to get out of it. And that's my message. That's why, I really wanted to write the book as well for that.
And you also talk about your own trauma. You're very honest in that sense as well. And you mentioned this thing of the personal wound. So maybe you can talk more about that, what that means?
So it's a concept, like I said, it's quite well known in sort of like a storytelling, but beyond that, it's also very true that we all have a personal wound based on our own history, childhood. Sometimes it could also be an event that's really impactful in your life. So for example, if you're a parent and you lost a child, that could be another thing that becomes a personal wound, something that would follow for you for the rest of your life. And that's why also the chapter for emotions is really important, because we need to be aware of that. And for me, it was very much observing that. And then as part of that, my own sort of research on that, I decided to I used it for myself, but I decided to add customized ChatGPT prompts to examine the personal wound as from the point of neuroscience and therapists, to start a conversation, to find out how those the personal wound, your own personal wound that you would have written before. There's an exercise, and then is affecting you in your adult life, and tools to overcome it. Then after that thread, ChatGPT thread, is then used in other chapters as a supplement of the exercise, because it's personalized to you. But also, it's something that you can continue later in life. If something triggers you, whatever, you have this personalized thing that is just yours, And I have found that incredibly useful for myself to do first the hard work, being aware of what you do all night long, but also in case you don't know why you're triggered or what something happened, then to have that tool as well.
So talking about ChatGPT prompts, this is something you use in your book. Why do you use AI in a self-help book?
Yes, well, I've included AI because there was actually a survey done this year, 2025, about what is the top use for ChatGPT. And then people said it was actually used for self-help. So people were using ChatGPT to make me feel, oh, I'm feeling bad today. Maybe it makes me feel good. So it's good to a point, because the issue with ChatGPT and those AI tools, they are designed for user experience. So they're quite agreeable. So if you say, oh, I'm feeling bad, everyone, the world is against me, they're all wrong. Yes, they're wrong. You're wonderful. So, and so it could become a crutch, and also it doesn't do the deeper, the hard work. So for me, I think the way I can sort of those prompt helps is the fact that first you do the background work and know why all this is happening, how you can sort of manage it, but also, to have this customized prompt, not just some agreeable tool like, oh, yes, you're wonderful, or everyone is wrong and I love you very much,
Yeah. Now, it's really well described in the book, so I definitely recommend people to read the book and understand how that works and how you can use it. So let's move on to talk a little bit about the BF Media Lounge website that I also checked out, of course. And you have a mascot called Boris the eggplant, very cute, and we can see him on your T-shirt. Yeah. And so, why did you choose an eggplant, and who is he?
So he's the mascot. First of all, I mean, for personal reason, because I'm a bit of an introvert, I didn't want to be the face of the company, because the movement of positivity, I didn't want to be the face of that. I just thought it would be much larger than myself. But also because I feel we live in a world where we fly. I think it's the Baha'i sort of religion. They talk about that. We know that this bird will fly just one wing, and the masculine wing. And what we often do sometimes to counteract that, we fly with just a female wing, which is often all the feminist stuff. But I felt we need to fly with both wings. So for me, Boris was like the positive masculinity that was making us fly properly. And I think it's an example for us to connect positive masculinity. And I'm hoping to bring men on board as well later. I write a book about also how that affects men. And also Boris is fun. And the thing about positivity and the films I want to make, they're fun. I know I've talked about a lot of heavy stuff, but they are fun. The positivity, it's because this is the fuel. And Boris is good. We have so many plans for Boris, and we're going to make him into a plushie, and he's going to follow us everywhere. He's going to be women's cheerleaders, and it's going to be so much fun, because you can imagine how much fun I'm going to have with an eggplant called Boris. So we love Boris.
So maybe you can tell us, what is your big dream, or what are your dreams, maybe in plural, for BF Media Lounge?
Oh, for BF Media Lounge, by the way, I didn't say, it means Boris and Friends Media Lounge. That might make more sense as well, I forgot to say. But so my big dream is to be the #1 reference for positivity in the world. And not from an ego perspective, but more from the fact that I do believe if we get together, we can take all of us onto a journey, because I feel I'm part of that journey. Like, people can say, oh, you wrote the book, but I feel I'm part of that journey. And I want to be like that person who's like cruising along in positivity, and we're all there, through the films, get excited about the film, through the stuff that we're going to do together. And I think also, it's like we're all born unique, right? Science tells us, we know that there's no one like you, and there's not going to be another person like you ever in the history of the world. So every story matters, I really believe that. And I think sometimes, because of the way the world is and how negative it is, we are struggling to live in that world. We get often, particularly women, we get sick, we get IBS, we get autoimmune disease, we get all of that, because we're constantly having to fight this world that is negative and is not made for us. So with that, it would be, as a group, have that safe place, and literally we can change the world. I really believe it. I'm really totally... So that's the big plan, so that we can all through the journey,
So we're ending on a very positive note. I like that. Let's give her a hand. job.